Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the Thursday, June 11, 2026 meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, citizens who are present. We will move quickly through our agenda tonight, starting with item 3, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, Chair, we do not, but we do have residents signed up for the public hearing.
Okay, we'll handle the public hearing in just a few minutes, so everyone sit tight, and we will get to that as we get to that item on the agenda. The next item is item 4A, consideration of an action on the approval of the minutes of the May 28th, 2026 meeting. Commissioners, you've got that in your packets. Any revisions to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion?
Second.
I've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Preek. I'm sorry, who had the second?
Me.
All right. I've got a second from Commissioner Patel. Any other discussion? All right, please vote. How are we doing? We can't see it.
One person hasn't voted.
Okay.
Was that me?
Whoever you are.
It said it's already been cast.
Okay, let me reset it.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, sources near me tell me that motion passes. We will move on now to item 5. Item 5 is an item regarding the proposed rezoning of the 42-acre tract located along Chatham Lane, adjacent to the James Reese Career and Technical Center. The proposed rezoning would rezone the tract from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for a proposed single-family neighborhood development. And we have Ethan Cantu, Principal Planner. What we'll do, let's hear Mr. Cantu's presentation. Then I will open the public hearing, and everyone who signed up to address the commission in public hearing will have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes each at that time. Hey, Ethan, what's up?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so tonight for you, we do have this rezoning, as you mentioned. So since it's been a little while since we've gotten a rezoning to go forward, we'll go ahead and give you a quick overview of what a rezoning is and what it isn't. So at a very high level, a rezoning evaluates whether a proposed zoning district is compatible with the city's comprehensive plan, the surrounding development, infrastructure, and the long-term goals of the city. It establishes a regulatory framework for future development, but doesn't authorize any construction on the site. And Planning and Zoning Commission reviews the request and makes a recommendation to City Council. So a rezoning is not, it's not an approval of a site plan or plat. It does not establish the final layout of streets or lots. It doesn't determine the number of size. It doesn't determine the number, size, or location of any future homes or buildings on the site. And also doesn't approve any architectural designs, elevations, or other details like that. So just getting into the site real quick. So once again, it's a 42-acre site. It's located along Chatham Avenue, adjacent to the James Reese Technical Center. This property is owned by Fort Bend ISD. There was a public bidding process procured by the school district, and Toro Nation, who's here tonight, their proposal was selected to move forward. And once again, so R1I is on the site currently. This site was annexed into the city in 2004. And per section 2-11 of the Development Code, all territory annexed to the city is temporarily classified as that zoning district. So once again, so the buyer is intending to develop a single-family neighborhood on the site. There are several concepts under consideration at this time, and all those concepts can be implemented within the R1 zoning district. So taking a look at the surrounding zoning districts, so to the west, east, and to the south are all going to be that R1 zoning district. So it fits in terms of what's the surrounding zoning districts. It would be very it would be the same as that. If you take a look at the future land use map, this tract of land is located within an area designated for suburban neighborhood. So that proposed R1 single family zoning district is consistent with the land use plan. And while a single-family neighborhood is intended to be built on the site, there are other uses that can be permitted by right within R1. So I just wanted to list those real quick for you guys. So it could be anything from like a childcare home, community home, an accessory dwelling unit, the single-family detached dwelling, which is what is being intended for the site. Also, park and recreational facilities, public schools, and HOA clubhouses can go there as well. So mailers were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. The notice was published in the newspaper and on the city's website. We placed a courtesy sign on the property, and the HOA was contacted by mail and email, and we also reached out to the MUD and the LID. So that's kind of the outreach we did, and we did receive one inquiry a little bit before the meeting started, which I passed out to you guys earlier. So that was the only inquiry staff has received at this time. And before we get into the public hearing, Toro Nation did want to say a few words, so I'm going to give them the floor, and then we get started with that, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For those of you who don't remember me, I'm Jim Calloway. I'm here tonight on behalf of Toro Nation, the investment group currently in the process of working on the purchase of this property from Fort Bend ISD. I would like to introduce a couple of people in the audience. First, Raheem Magnosia. Raheem is the managing member of Toro Nation LLC. And from Fort Bend Independent School District, Damian Viltz. I'm not going to be redundant of Ethan's presentation. I think he's covered all the true planning issues. I do want to give you a little background about the team that Raheem has assembled to work on the development of this property. He's brought in a team which is, I think, very experienced, competent, and invested in Telfair. He has included on his team Alan Bauer. Some of you may remember Alan. He was one of the Newland Communities developers that worked on this property. He is working with LJ Engineering, which is the original and I think only engineer that has done work in Telfair, both platting, infrastructure design, and construction management. Also, in the event that this project goes forward, we have been in contact with and have a proposal for environmental, archaeological, and cultural research studies and analysis from the same professionals that provided these services on the Reese campus. Focusing a little bit on the process going forward, really this is the first step to determine whether or not the proposed single-family use is even allowable on this property. And Toro is not going to make significant investment in land planning, subdivision design, landscape architecture until they know for sure this project can proceed. We've been transparent with the city staff and the interested parties we've talked to. We do have concepts. They have ranged from large lots, which I would almost describe as acreage lots, to lots consistent with those you find elsewhere in Telfair. We have not done and will not do until the property's further in the process, the preliminary engineering work to determine which size lot and which lot layouts are most feasible. There's a lot of work ahead on this project, but really square one is the zoning, and city council action and zoning will tell us if we've made it to square one. In closing, I want to say that I'm here for two reasons tonight. When leaving the city, I was asked if I'd be willing to assist property owners and investors go through the city development review process. At the time I said yes, never imagining that it would actually happen, but it did, and here I am. The other reason I'm here tonight is I believe R1 is the appropriate permanent zoning for this part of Telfair. There are other places in Telfair that are planned for higher densities, for non-residential uses. I think that is the appropriate zoning for this property. We'll be happy to take any questions you have before or after the public hearing. We may not have the answer to some of those questions because we are at square one, but we do want to thank the commission and the city staff for your time and effort and consideration in this request. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right. So with that, staff does recommend holding a public hearing followed by consideration and action, and staff supports a recommendation of approval to the mayor and city council for the proposed rezoning from interim standard single-family residential to standard single-family residential. So I guess we can proceed with.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm going to formally open the public hearing. We will receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed rezoning of the 42-acre tract located along Chatham Avenue, adjacent to the James Reese Career and Technical Center. The proposed rezoning would rezone the tract from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for a proposed single-family neighborhood development. It looks like we've got 6 speakers that are signed up to speak, and I'm just going to go through them in the order in which I've received them, and if I mispronounce your name, I will apologize in advance. If you'll tell me the correct pronunciation, I'll try to make that mistake only once. Okay. Our first speaker, I believe, is Sumita Ghosh. Ghosh. Thank you. Come on down. And while you're coming down, I'll remind everyone you'll have 3 minutes, and you'll see a clock up on the screen in front of you. And sirens will go off. No, I'm just kidding. You'll know when your time's up.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sumita Ghosh, and I live in off of Kennesaw Court in Sugar Land, Texas. And I'm here because I'm not opposed to the zoning change, but I'm just asking to see a healthy discussion of what would be required of the developer before they actually make further plans for it. And what I'm mainly concerned with is about 15 years ago now, I think, I met a gentleman named Reginald Moore. He would, gentle giant who would hang out at Fort Bend ISD meetings. Maybe some of us folks who would hang out there would meet him. And he would always bring up the issue of, James Reese is a burial ground. You need to encourage. He would be there for his thing, and I'd be there for my thing, and I'd be like, that is just like really crazy, and no one knows the story. And so he would talk, and we got to know each other fairly well. And his thing was always, there's dead bodies there. And he was proven right, as we know. Fort Bend ISD owns this land, and I'm sure they're trying to make money because they're in a huge, massive budget shortfall. But we really need to think about what is in that land. And if I would like to see a healthy discussion in P&Z about what requirements there will be for whoever develops that land, specifically to 2 items, trying to do a real dig and evaluation of that site to see what is under there. And it can't be some artificial standard of like, oh yeah, we'll go down to 12 inches when we know dead bodies are buried much deeper than that. And then also a discussion of if something is found, what is the plan for it and follow up. And again, I mean, being creative, you guys are amazing and know what you're doing. So just being creative about what our options are. If, as Reginald has sworn to me many times, there are bodies, not just at Reese, but in that area too, because surprisingly, there's a cemetery on one side and the cemetery on the other side. Well, what do you think's in between the 2 cemeteries? More dead bodies, I'm pretty sure. And so just a consideration of what sort of archaeological requirements would be made, clearances that would need for any development, and what the backup plan would be if something is found in that property. So that's all I'm asking the P&Z to consider. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker, I believe, is Frank Fraley. Yes. Come on down, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Frank Fraley. I'm a former district judge here in Fort Bend County. I'm a member of the executive board of the Fort Bend Vicinity NAACP. I'm also the president-elect of Sugar Land Rotary. Now, I'm here to speak on my own behalf. Now, we at Sugar Land Rotary went out to the particular grave site that's adjacent to this property and took time to clean it up and put the first marker there dictating that, in fact, there are human remains there from what we call convict leasing. Now there's a historical marker that has been placed there by the state. Now, for the NAACP, we believe that most of the people out there are people of color. Now, what's going to happen when this ground is dug up and bones are found, which the evidence show most likely will happen? I mean, will production stop? Will the folks who bought their property get their money back? What's going to happen? So I'm asking that this council take a close look at what they're about to do, what's about to take place. Because these were real persons, they're real people, they have real families. It's unfortunate that's part of our history, not just the history of Sugar Land, but the history all up and down the southern coast. I wasn't aware of that until I read a publication that came out from Fort Bend Independent School District that was talking about what we refer to as Sugar Land 95. So after I researched it, I found out this was not something that was just native to Texas. Just my understanding, Texas did it very well. So I'm just asking that we hold off and use that land for some other interest other than digging up people's graves and putting houses on top of it. That's just not the right thing to do. So that's my personal opinion. I'm not here to speak for either one of the organizations which I am part of. So thank you for that time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is Ursula Knox.
I'm short. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm standing here representing all African Americans that are not aware that this is going on, as well as my clientele. I am a mental health professional here in Sugar Land. Actually, one of my private practices is adjacent to this property that you are speaking of. In my younger years as a student, I was one that was going through all the archives of the prison records and really looking for these people. As years came along, I was very fortunate to interview some of the families that were actually found through archaeology as well as DNA testing. These are real people, and it's terrible what's happening. I just really hope and pray that the developers do the right thing. When or if they find any bones, let's pause. Let's take a chance to do what's right. There is so much bad press around this, and the social climate is really toxic around racism. This is the time to really do what's right, as well as for the developers. Now, if you're acquiring such a land as massive as this, what can you do with it? You don't have to necessarily place houses on top of people. You can make safe spaces for meditation. You can make community centers. I have so many clients that I don't know what to do. Why? Because Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, is a mental health desert. These things can be developed into oases that would actually help and benefit the community. You can be culturally sensitive. Evidence proves that any business that is culturally sensitive as well as culturally aware, they do well in their profits. So this is a chance to actually do what's right and not necessarily just make money. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Anand Pinto. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. My name is Anand Pinto. I live in Telfair, actually, adjacent to Chatham. So I'm here, because of two reasons. One is, I think my proposal is to defer the rezoning, keep it as interim until certain things are done. And I think the reason for that is, one, it's adjacent to a historically designated site, if I'm not mistaken. It's designated by the state of Texas as a Texas historical site. And then, of course, as speakers before me mentioned, right, there was forewarning by, God bless his soul, Reginald Moore about, what's going to happen, right? And we've seen what happened. And so my proposal is, I think we've got technology today. I know some of the P&Z commissioners who are sitting here have spoken in previous sessions or in other venues that you've got technology today that you can see what's under the ground, whether it's 5 feet or 50 feet underneath. So the proposal is, why don't we do that versus and then proceed further versus the developer having to go through that and then it's in the interest of everybody and not burden the developer at a later date, just like the situation we had with FBISD. And I think the other thing is, we know what happened with Harvey as well, right? I mean, New Territory was flooded, right? Mandatory evacuation, Telfair was the catchment area. So I think some of the other reason we need to see when we're adding more homes in that place, probably better to do a drainage and all of that studies before to see the impact before we put in new homes over there. So I think that's kind of my proposal. I would recommend that, let it be interim, let's defer the zoning until some of these things are addressed so that way it doesn't, become a bigger issue and I would say, mud in the face of everybody. So we're dealing with it later. So that's my proposal, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Anna Lakudis.
You said it well, thank you.
Come on down.
Yes. I appreciate it. Thank you, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Forgive me for the last minute notice, but I have been a community advocate advocating on behalf of the voiceless, known also as the Sugarland 95. This is a historical moment that we're all sitting here observing, and you all have the power to decide what happens with this land. This 42 acres, yes, in the presentation of the gentleman from the planning, showed you there's a lot of residential homes there, which would be consistent. But one thing that was overlooked, and I'm not assuming it was nefarious, this is right adjacent to a Texas state historical marker. The finding of those bodies, the discovery by that backhoe driver that was helping build the Reese campus, that particular individual stopped because he thought he saw human remains. And it took 2 tests to verify indeed they were. What if he hadn't stopped? What if he hadn't? We would have not known and been able to rectify some of the vicious damage that our system of racism and oppression put upon people of color in the earlier part of our decade. A systemic system of racial and economic oppression just because someone was the wrong skin color and forced to work on plantations. And the sugar plantations were the worst. Reginald Moore, a community advocate who died fighting and continuing to persist to warn there are bodies on this land. He warned Johnson Development. And after that, he warned Fort Bend ISD. And his records were accurate. His records are respectable, historical, academic records that are currently housed in Rice University archives. These were plantations. People died on this land. The youngest victim was 14 years old. This is not business as usual. This is not Sugarland developments as usual. I wish it was. This is sacred land. And if the city is intentional about memorializing our city's history with the sugar factory, then what are we doing about this sacred land that is right next to the cemetery? This is not an appropriate use. It needs to be a memorial park. We should not be digging up and putting houses on the bodies of the dead. And I'm here for those voices. I'm here for those victims. And we really need to stop and think.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Malcolm, is it Grieg?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Malcolm Gregg. I live in Newington Lane, which is just adjacent to the property. We can actually see it from our house. So I'm just here to explain a bit about the level of community engagement that there's been. When I realised that the land was up for sale, I notified some neighbours and we got together and I organised a petition on change.org. So essentially the petition as presented was that in the heart of Sugarland, Telfair subdivision faces a challenge, 42 acres of green space originally acquired by Fort Bend ISD, now for sale and potentially a risk of irresponsible development. Currently zoned for single family housing. At the time I didn't realise that it was, oh, can you hear me now? Okay. At the time it was interim, so that was corrected, but the land could easily be rezoned for dense multifamily commercial use. Such a change would erase the cherished green space, worsen traffic and strain existing infrastructure, and altering the northern half of Telfair. The environmental quality of life consequences are too great to ignore. We urge local officials to reject any rezoning from R1 and ensure that any future residential development respects and preserves Telfair's green character. So we call upon residents of Telfair and nearby subdivisions to stand with us to protect these 42 acres from any irresponsible development and thereby keep our community's balance of nature and urban convenience. So we gathered 672 to date signatures, which most of those came in within the first few days. So there was a high level of interest with the community nearby. I think something like 85 and 90% of the comments were, the signatures were from the local area. Inevitably you get some coming in from outside the area, but in this case it was mostly local people. A few comments indicated that people were really pushing for it to be left as green space. I don't know if that's realistic. It may or may not be, depending on what happens, but people have said, for example, Telfair needs more green space, and since this area was reserved for a school, would appreciate it if it used as such. Another option is a proposed school in Brook Street could be moved to here instead. Telfair has enough and more commercial buildings already. Sugarland's character as a safe and welcoming community must be preserved. Allowing this land to be developed for high-density housing would create unsafe traffic conditions, overcrowding, diminish the charm and defines our city. So there were several comments that really said, why can't it be just left as it is? That will be the ideal thing for most people in Telfair, but my main purpose here to talk to you is just to show that there is a high level of community engagement, and I'll happily leave a copy of this petition with you if you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who has not signed up who would like to speak before I close the public hearing? I'll also note that we received written comment from Farah Ahmed prior to the hearing. That's been distributed to each of the commissioners here, and the gist of the comment is also of that. The gist of this comment is that the city should request a proper analysis of the land in the event that human remains are being found. They don't expressly say whether they are in favor of or opposed to the project, but I think that fairly captures the tenor of the comment. Anyone else before I close the public hearing? Yes, ma'am. You can come down. We'll have you fill out a form, but come on down. Absolutely, you may speak. And just before you start, just give your name and your address, and then after you speak, fill out the form for us so we have it on the record. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Fatima Khan, and my family and I live in Telfair, very close to the Reese FBI City building. We are huge fans of living in Telfair, and we actually chose this place for many years, and we have desired to grow our family in this place. While listening to people, I completely understand the sentiments of their concern of development, and I am so happy that there are people out there who like to talk for the voiceless. What I also want them to know, and maybe not targeting them solely, but also There's been so many other developments here. The land right adjacent to the actual jail itself, which is being developed right now across from 90, kind of like the backside of Chelsea Harbor. There's been so much digging and development over there. There's not been bodies found. I'm sure they've done some analysis there too. That's equivocal that we can do over here also, to actually look for analysis to pacify those who are so concerned about this, including ourselves. We don't have to be insensitive. My work of profession is to work with animals. They are voiceless. I actually give voice to those animals every day, to their owners, to tell them what they're thinking, how to treat them. So I'm completely not insensitive to this desire of people wanting to be heard and wanting to salvage those who are in the distant centuries past. However, I really think that you should give a chance to development. I am a strong family person that thinks that development should occur, and I do think that analyzing this area before developing is something that we should look forward to. Please, those who are apprehensive should do perhaps a little bit more supportive towards it and not just assume that there's perhaps remains there. Maybe there's nothing there. Maybe this is actually just going to be an empty piece of land that should be developed on. So we should look at that angle. We should look at the other chance of maybe there is development potential, rather than just narrow ourselves and say the past dictated this and we should just live in that. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you for everyone who took an opportunity to speak. I need quiet in the chamber, please. I need quiet in the chamber, please, or I will clear it. Are we all understand? Thank you. All right, Ethan, what do you got?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions for staff, we can take those questions.
Oh, I think there are probably a few questions.
Yes, I'm sure there is.
All right, questions for staff. We'll start down here and work our way in.
So I wanted to ask you on the 250 notification radius, did it capture any residential properties?
No, it did not. So that's why we reached out to the HOA directly. So they were able to kind of distribute all of that out. Because of where this was situated, the 200-foot really just captured, you know, what was adjacent to the site. So that would be like green space, drainage channels. So we went the extra step and reached out to the HOA, as well as the mud and the lid. So.
And when you say HOA, which management company?
Telfair's management company.
Do you know which one?
Whichever one is the, like on their website, I don't know if I have it directly. Telfair Homeowners Association is the one that we reached out to.
Okay. And then you said you also reached out to the mud?
Yes.
What about LID
Yes.
17?
Mm-hmm.
Are they expected to fund any infrastructure for this property?
That wasn't brought up to our knowledge. We just did it out of a courtesy since they were within the range of the 200-foot buffer.
And is there any way, like in the future, to increase this 200 feet? Because I find this is right in the middle of residential, and no residential properties have been notified. That's kind of, you know, something we need to improve on, because this is right in the middle of a neighborhood. And,
Correct.
And no one in the neighborhood knows this was coming up.
Yes.
And so I think that if we go further, I think we need to find out if we can do that.
So staff has looked into that a little bit. We've done some research with peer cities. We've seen some go out to as far as 250 feet. But the closest residential house that I was able to map was about 570-ish feet away. So if we would, you know, we can expand it as far as we need to. But you know, if we were to change the standard to 500 feet at a different date, we might get, you know, hundreds of notifications.
Because right between this property and the neighborhood, there's only one street. So I guess that's more than 200 feet?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's the street, and then it's also that kind of drainage, pondish area over there as well, so, yeah.
And the other question I had was, is this property already bought, or are we in the option period?
They're in negotiations still.
Okay, so there could be in the option period studies done to find out if there are any remains. And could that be done right now?
Not by us, that would be the job of the purchaser.
Okay, but is that some requirement we can put in?
The city does not have any requirements for that, so.
Okay, so I guess my next question would be, why would we already be rezoning when we don't have all the information? They haven't even bought their property yet. Like, who brought that to the city?
Who brought the rezoning?
Yeah.
So Toro Nation is acting on behalf of the ISD to rezone this property.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, I can jump in. So they want to understand what entitlements they have on the property before they fully close. That is typical and advisable to understand before you purchase property what you can actually do with the property. So in the first step is actually making sure that entitlements zoning is secured. So they are taking that initial step.
So after this step, would Fort Bend ISD allow them to do additional studies to find out? Like, you know, there was some talk about technology, other ways to find out, would that be allowed by Fort Bend ISD? Do we know that answer?
I don't know that answer. That would be something that Fort Bend ISD and the potential purchaser would have to address and work out.
Okay. Nothing for right now. I might come back.
Thank you. Randall, do you have anything? Commissioner DeWood?
Yeah, I do. I want to speak to the gentleman that came second last. I don't remember your name, but
Can I just, I hate to interrupt, but I think we should not address our comments to individual people in the gallery. I think if you have questions for staff, you can ask whatever you would like to of staff, but I
Okay,
don't want to
well,
engage in colloquy with people that have spoken. I don't think that's the purpose of public comment. I don't think that's
well,
within our
because a
purview.
petition was put forward, and so the question is, maybe he can answer.
You can
Maybe
ask staff
maybe
to
the
answer
staff
the
can
question,
answer.
absolutely.
Can you tell me that in that petition that was put forward, 90 to 95% were in the favor of not disturbing the site or having a different purpose than single family? What is that 90 to 95%? What does it tally to in terms of number? Are we
Ethan, do you
talking
know the
about
answer to that
100
question?
people?
I'm trying to understand
Okay,
that
staff
question
doesn't know the
first.
answer to that question, so
That was the first we have
ask
heard
a
of this
question that he
petition.
can answer.
So yeah, I can jump in. So we have not received the petition. So that is not something that we have been able to review. That's not something that's been turned into the city. That's just been mentioned here in the comments.
So that was the first time
Yes, ma'am.
we all heard about it.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I will come back later, but that's the question for now.
Okay. Bradley?
All right. That's the first thing that was on the record, my comment. So, yeah, I have a couple questions for you. First off, have you seen the petition?
No, this was the first staff heard,
Okay.
heard of it, yes.
Do you know whether or not, if you see this petition, you see the concerns of the residents of Telfair, whether you would either have additional meetings or maybe change your recommendation? Have you thought about that at all when you were just listening to what they were saying?
I mean, I don't have much to comment on that in terms of like what it would sway staff like one way or another. We more so go off of just like, you know, what's surrounding the property, what the guidance we get in the land use plan, comprehensive plan, the policy direction we get. So that's kind of what we base our recommendation off of. And once again, this is the first I've heard of this, first I've seen this petition. So without seeing it with my own eyes, I can't really say whether we'd be swayed one way or the other.
And then the other question I have is, because I know you're saying what's surrounding the land, right across Highway 90 from this land is the airport. And the path of the planes come right over, and I'm assuming also goes right over the right over this 42 acres as well. Correct. And I know there's a lot of regulations with regard to the airport, with regard to heights and things like that. And I do understand R1 zoning goes up to 2.5 stories.
Yeah, 35.
And so 35 feet? Yeah, so I'm just wondering, with regard to this zoning and the airport, is there going to be any conflicts with regard to the height requirements for these planes that are landing? Because my understanding is that's what's been holding back a lot of the development on this land, is this landing strip on the airport and the regulations, the federal regulations that you have to follow as well.
Yes, so we have reached out to the airport directly. They have taken a look at this. We've talked to them about the potential like water detention area, just in case there's any kind of birding, any kind of hazards that would be, coming into place with this zoning. They didn't really have any qualms with it, so they have had their chance to weigh in on it with staff.
Were they notified of this hearing?
Yes, yeah. Well, they went through the review process with staff. Airport.
I can also jump in on that. So they have looked at the property. The airport has an understanding of what height allowances there are on the property. The 2.5 stories is well under what would be permitted or what would be capped on the property. Also of note, all of Telfair has a navigation easement that applies to the property. It doesn't limit development. It is more of an awareness for anybody that purchases property that there is an airport in proximity, so there may be noise that you may hear, but other than that, there are no restrictions from an airport standpoint.
Okay.
Commissioner Tilton, can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
On your behalf? I have more questions, but just on that point, so if someone, is it the case that if there were a height restriction that was imposed by the FAA or someone else, that you couldn't actually get like the site permit to build something on that property that didn't comply with whatever those restrictions were?
Yes, correct.
In other words, that's something that's handled in permitting?
Correct.
Okay.
So they do fill out a 7460 form, which kind of what you said. Basically, it tells you like the allowable height within that proximity to the airport. So.
Okay, but you can't build something with the city's stamp of approval if it doesn't comply with
the FAA.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
I had one question as a follow-up to that.
Can you hold on just for a second? I'll make sure Commissioner Tilton.
No more questions for me.
He's in the middle of his questions. I just want to give him an opportunity to finish. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you that, this airport is not the same size it was when Telfair developed, right? And I guess it would be something that the homeowners would be aware of when they purchase this land, right? And because this airport is much bigger, the planes are much bigger, and if you were standing there, it doesn't feel like 35 feet. It feels like it's right on top of your head. And I wanted to know what we were going to do to make sure at the time of purchase that easement going to be everybody's going to be notified.
That would be between the developer and the purchaser, but there, in terms of just with the airport itself, there was the navigation and noise intrusion would not dictate any kind of development on that property, but that'd be between the purchaser and developer.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, so it is a recorded document. So during the kind of sale, purchase process, that is something that would be part of the information that's shared and disclosed. So it is a recorded document that would come up in a title search and so forth.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith?
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming forward and voicing their concerns and input around this particular topic. I think it's always good to have citizens' input. But one question, I have a couple questions. So when we're trying to go from interim to R1, what really is the difference? Is it just that we're trying to get to a final zoning of this property?
A permanent zoning, correct.
So if we didn't do anything and it stayed in interim, could you still develop on the property?
No, it has to be a permanent zoning district.
Right there. The school owns it. The school could develop on it. Since it's a state entity, they are not regulated by our zoning laws.
So it's because it's going to another party that's not a school.
That would require the permanent zoning on the property, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. And then I have some questions for, I guess, who wants to represent the developer.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
hi, thanks. So in the comments that you made, you said that there would be an archaeological review done on this property. So what level of review are in your plans if this were to go forward in doing before any development starts?
The review would be consistent with and done by the same people who did the work for the Sugarland 95 after the first discovery. There will be monitoring by those same people. Personally, I haven't talked to, I don't know if you remember the name Rain Clark, who led the work on the existing cemetery. Haven't spoken to him since about 2 o'clock this afternoon. But we have been in close contact with him. He feels very firmly about the boundaries of the formal cemetery, both formal cemeteries, because he's done work around both. At the same time, while he thinks there's a very low probability, there is a potential chance that you will find either artifacts or a burial site. And we will have to deal with those things in accordance with the statutes. But Toro cannot begin that work until they own the property.
Understand?
I don't think the school district is going to do that work. So
I don't.
that's where we are. The work has to be done. The last thing Toro wants is a surprise. They want to know in advance what might be out there.
So I think it would be useful to sort of think ahead, because I think that, you know, there is thought, it sounds like that something would be found, is if there were a plan forward, given that this review would be done of the land, what would happen if remains are found?
There is, I would call it a plan in that the scope of services outlines what would happen in those instances. I would tell you that this is an issue that is part of the negotiation with the school district, and we're not going to get into the property negotiations. Frankly, I have not been involved in those, but these are still issues that affect the usability and the value of the land, and the school district and the purchaser are working together to resolve those.
That's all I have, right?
Commissioner Preet?
Yep, I had one that piggybacks nicely off that, and I wanted to also thank all the residents who spoke with such passion. It's an important part of the process. I think you can stay up there. What's the most you could do in the interim phase? Because once you purchase the land, I don't think it's in anyone's best interest, obviously, especially the developer, to all of a sudden find something after they purchased it, right? And that becomes a big PR nightmare, and also just also does something to the value and the marketability of that land. What's the most you could do if it stayed in an interim pre-purchase? I know that's probably maybe part of the negotiation with the school district, but I think that would give a lot of the residents some comfortability that we did some form of more than the necessary due diligence, given the context of where this property sits. So if you could speak to some of that, to sort of what Commissioner Smith was asking about with regards to some of the archaeological, environmental stuff that you would do prior to purchase, just to make sure for yourself and for your client that you're not walking into something with a big surprise at the end of it.
We are not allowed to disturb the surface prior to closing, period. That includes soil samples for phase 2 environmental. So these are issues, the implications of which, the contingencies for which are part of a real estate transaction negotiation. But there will be no invasive studies of the property, no intrusive studies of the property until the closing. That's been made very clear to us. There are technologies that can be applied. We have been advised by the people who would provide that service that due to the nature of the clays in that area, they don't think those would be beneficial. There are other studies that could be done that would locate, and one of the tools that was used in locating burial sites with the Sugar Land 95 was finding the hardware that was in the original caskets, and they don't think that would be definitive if we can't dig down to see what the metal detection has found, because they expect there will be artifacts. There was a farm here. There were residences here. There were barracks here. We expect to find artifacts. We expect to work with the appropriate agencies to preserve those artifacts.
Got it. So the catch-22 is obviously we can't really do anything invasive until the purchase. And then you mentioned there's statutes that define what you will and won't do if you find something.
That's correct.
What I would suggest is complete transparency with the community, making sure that they're engaged, they have a voice, and I think that's only going to help the applicant, right? Because I understand there's limitations to what you can do right now in this phase.
Our consultant
yeah.
recommends that very same thing.
Yep.
Our consultant worked closely with Reginald Moore through the process on the Reese Center property. And he not only recommends that those things happen, but he insists, because he wants this to be just exactly what you described, an effort where there's transparency and understanding.
Yeah, and no one's going to want to buy a house. I mean, it's going to affect the marketability and future sales, right, of whatever you decide to do there from the residential
And
perspective.
Toro wants to know these things. They do not want to be surprised.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate those comments, and I think just transparency in the plan and communication and making sure that that's all detailed to the public, regardless of what is or what isn't found.
This is a very complex transaction. There are very sensitive issues. I can't speak to those issues because I'm not aware of all of those, but we will not be able to do any intrusive or invasive studies on the property until Toro owns it.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. And I don't know if they'll be directed to you, but while you're here, I'm doing this on the fly, per usual.
I've been here before.
I know. Okay, so I understand that the purchaser can't do anything beyond anything intrusive while they don't own the property, correct?
Correct.
The school district could though, right?
It could.
Yeah, and do you know whether one way or not, whether that's
I don't think it
subject of
will.
any
I think if it was
negotiations?
inclined, if the district was inclined to do that, they would allow someone else to do that.
Okay. The other thing I'll ask you while you're there at the dais is, do you have a general understanding of what the requirements are in the event that you found human remains or artifacts on the property while it was being developed? I'm not going to hold you to anything. I just am saying, can you walk us through at least your understanding of what any property owner would have to do in the course of development?
There has to be
if there's a
immediate
discovery
notification,
like that?
first to law enforcement.
So notification?
Uh-huh.
All right. What else?
Anything that occurs after that, a reinterment, a relocation, establishing a cemetery at that very location, there's going to be some court involvement. It will be a public process, and I have really given you everything I know. And,
Okay.
and that's why Toro will hire experts in that area.
I appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much. Ethan, I've got questions for you and for staff. Do you know how long the school district has owned the property?
I do not. It was annexed in 2004, but I don't have an exact date on when.
Did they own it when it was annexed?
It was around 2015.
I don't know. I can get that answer for you if you'd like, but I don't.
Yeah,
have
I'd be
to tell you
curious
yes
to
or
know
no.
when the district purchased the property.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know the exact date. I do not think that they owned it when the property was annexed into the city. I think it came later after Telfair started developing, when either the property was conveyed to the district or the district purchased it from Newland Communities. So we'll have to do a little research to find that exact date or time.
Okay, and I'm trying to form a question that's answerable by staff. So I know you always listen carefully, but listen to my question carefully. I know, I'm sorry. Are you aware, as you sit here today, of any due diligence or site assessment that the school district performed before they purchased the property?
I'm not aware of.
Okay. So let's talk about the current zoning, which is R1I. What can be done in an R1I?
Nothing by an outside entity, kind of what Lisa was going off of. Since Fort Bend ISD owns the property, they can develop it in accordance with, whatever, they don't have to follow our zoning district or our zoning regulations because they are a state entity. But in terms of anything else outside of like a school use, it would just be.
Okay, so a couple follow-ups on that. So first of all, and I'm not saying this would happen, but the school district owns the property. So if they wanted to build a school there tomorrow, they could do that, right?
Correct, yes.
And if they did that and uncovered human artifacts or remains, right, they'd have to go through whatever the statutory process is for addressing that, correct?
Yeah, same as what Jim's team would have to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess the other question is, let's assume that it's R1I, but it's not owned by a governmental entity, okay? So assume that there's an R1I property and it's owned by a private entity. What can that private entity do on that property?
Nothing until it's permanently zoned.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. There was mention of several concepts for the property. Tell me to what extent, if any, the staff thinks that the commission should take into consideration any of the one or more of the proposed concepts, or alternatively, should the commission even at all think about what the concepts are in making a decision about zoning?
So I will say staff has seen a few of these concepts through prior meetings with the team. They are all kind of what I said in the presentation. They all fit within the R1 zoning regulations. They all fit the minimum lot width, lot depth, all that good stuff. Yeah, I mean, should it have any bearing on whether you guys approve it or not? I can't say, but in terms of just for y'all's knowledge, they do all follow the regulations, fit within the community, fit within what's there in Telfair now. They're not super dense lots. They're standard lots that you see in Telfair, so it would be consistent with what's out there now.
Okay, and has the potential property owner made any representations to city staff about what they would do if they were able to develop this property and they discovered human artifacts or remains?
Other than Jim's kind of laid it out, and he similar to what he's mentioned today is what he's mentioned in previous meetings with us. So.
Okay, let's call him back up. All right, are you advising P&Z that the potential property owner is representing that they care about the sensitivity of this situation, that if they were in a position to develop the property, they would conduct the proper assessments to determine whether there were any human artifacts and remains there, and if in fact the answer to that question was yes, that they would deal with that in terms of not only what's required by the law, but in a sensitive and caring manner, as I think the citizens of Sugarland have indicated an interest in how that situation would be handled. What can you tell us? Because I'm not fussing at you, I don't have anything in the staff report that says a word about any of this. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if this issue wasn't flagged, or if it was flagged, but I don't have any guidance from staff as to what the potential purchaser has told the city, and I'd like to know what that is.
I'll let Lisa speak to that. Why it wasn't flagged, my opinion is it's relevant regardless of the zoning district. We're here tonight to discuss the appropriate zoning district.
I understand.
A private owner is not subject to the same regulations as a school district or a city or a county. Private owner is not required to do the same kind of archaeological and cultural resource surveys. This is next to a sensitive site. This is next to a state designated site. The owner intends to do those things.
Thank you.
Correct.
You've answered my question.
The consultant is aware of what transpired with the school, and he's aware that once a discovery gets into the courts, you don't know what's going to happen. So he's very sensitive to the fact that you have to be transparent and inclusive. And I hope that addresses your question.
You've answered my question. Thank you. Did I say something you'd like to respond to?
The only thing I just want to clarify is that the city doesn't have any requirements, regulations, standards for that would trigger any type of analysis or study or anything like that. So to the point of it's not in the report, there's nothing that we have that's enforceable in our regulations that would even touch on this topic.
I understand that, and that's why I tried to frame my question to get some insight as to what conversations have taken place.
Understood.
Regarding how the the prospective property owner might deal with the situation if it arises, whether there was a legal requirement to do so or not.
Thank you.
So that's the intent of my questions. All right, further questions for staff? Yep, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to tag on to that. So if there's no requirement as to doing this archaeological review, then we're really taking the trust upon the purchaser of this property to do so.
Correct.
And to me, it's a bit of a risk to that purchaser to even, because there's money involved, right, of doing this review. And then obviously if something's found, it sort of puts a delay into everything, which is money as well, typically. So I'm a little concerned that you go down this path and you have to put trust in that developer is going to do, you know, what really I think we probably all see as right. But there's nothing that if we were to approve this, there's nothing that is going to require that to occur.
No, that's correct. Yeah, the city has no bounds to really hold them to that. But I think that there's enough there from in terms of the community and, you know, what's been said here today and the knowledge that's, you know, come up with what the James Reese Center, that they would need to do their due diligence to get a buy-in from the community. So, if you want to add it.
Yeah, and again, just to add a couple of things, I think what we've heard is they want to do that as well. They just can't do that yet. And I also just want to clarify that what the zoning is and what Ethan kind of covered, it is saying that use is, and the uses that were listed on that slide are appropriate for the site. It's consistent with the land use plan and the comprehensive plan, but that doesn't give them any actual construction development rights at that point from a standpoint of going on the ground and building anything. There's still platting that has to be gone through. There is building permits, site plan, those types of things that still have to go and happen through both the commission and administrative processes before anything actually physically gets constructed on the property. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to the question of risk, if I might.
Yes, sir.
There is risk. There's risk for all the parties. No one is at greater risk than Toro. That risk has to be mitigated in the terms of the purchase. There has to be some provision that provides for contingencies, that provides some mechanism for dealing with this. This is expensive property. You know, this is going to be have to be a high-end development just because of the price of the ground. But I think the one thing that is best from tonight's discussion is that representatives of the school district, including the broker, are here hearing your concerns, and that will help them understand Toro's concerns and Toro's points on negotiating that risk.
All right, last call. Questions for staff?
I do have questions.
Yep.
So, I'm not going to name names, but there has been development at an archaeological site. And as part of an entitlement, there have been conditional approvals, not in Sugar Land, some other jurisdiction. And my question is that if city does not have any regulations in place to require that, but it is an entitlement process, can another entity, like a community, there are some representatives from different organizations, can they actually get together with the city and request a requirement be placed to the entitlement process? Because right now what I'm not understanding is that why would the developer purchase such an expensive property, propose such expensive homes on that property, and then, you know, as part of we don't know what their archaeological study encompasses. We don't know how deep they're going to go. We don't know who's inspecting it. We don't know in good faith who's going to report what. I mean, when this technical college was being built, there was one person that reported it that was operating the backhoe. Had that not happened, this whole thing would not have seen the light of day, right?
Yeah.
So we have no mechanism in place from a city. That's what you're telling us, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But if a organization, a social organization, or organization representing someone, whatever, wants to get together with the city to request or require an archaeological study prior to entitlement, would that be possible?
Well,
Is there any pathway for that?
the city does not own that land. It's owned by Fort Bend ISD, so we have no control over what can be done there at this point.
But you do have control to rezone it, right? Through this process.
Yes, in theory, yes.
So can we require that condition? Like I'm not understanding the path to what if something is discovered, who discovers it, how does it, I mean, we're leaving everything to trust. And how does that serve the different interests that have spoken here?
Right. I think I'm trying to understand your first question, and then this kind of the follow-up question in terms of the trust aspect, or the statement about trust. I think you've heard from the potential purchaser that that's something that they want to do, and again, we don't have that specific requirement. To the question of can somebody request that be added? Yes, technically. I can't guarantee that it would actually make it into the list of requirements. So, at this time.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I'm going to call for the question for the purpose of taking a vote. And I want to be clear. I'm going to make a motion so that we can consider this item, all right? So I won't make a motion to recommend approval to the proposed rezoning of the 42-acre tract located along Chatham Avenue adjacent to the James Reese Career and Technical Center. The proposed rezoning would rezone the tract from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for a proposed single-family neighborhood development. Is there a second? Hearing none, I make a motion that we table agenda item number 5A at this time. Is there a second to that motion? Second. I've got a second. Further discussion? Please vote by hand, because that's not in the system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a unanimous vote, 7-0 to table the motion. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to item 6A unless you stop me.
I am
6A. Pardon?
I'm going to stop, yes, and I think Anjali wants to weigh in here. Is there something that we are you're directing us to follow up on, information that you want us to bring back to you for this item?
Well, I'll speak for myself, all right, and then others can speak for themselves too. I think the answer to your question, Lisa, is no. I am not asking city staff to provide us with any additional information, because as I understand it, city staff doesn't have any information to give us. It's not a city requirement. It's not going to be, exploring this property further is not going to be a city requirement. We can't impose a requirement that mandates a prospective purchaser to perform an analysis of the property. Okay, so no, I'm not asking the city to do anything. However, do I think the parties to this transaction have a lot to think about and a lot to discuss amongst themselves before they even conclude a deal and bring it to P&Z? I think the answer to that question is yes. And I'm not personally comfortable giving what I think is essentially an advisory opinion on a zoning classification for a transaction that hadn't even occurred. I understand how stuff works. I understand the risk. But my personal view is that the parties to this transaction need to think through this issue a little bit more and perhaps do a little bit more due diligence. And that information should be presented to staff, and staff should make a recommendation to us based on that information. But I'm not asking staff to do anything personally. Other thoughts? Any other commissioners have guidance for staff?
I do. I would like, if there is a pathway to explore, because you said there was a technical pathway, but you're not sure if it's going to ever be required or not, if that can be explored for a private or social organization to reach out to the city and request or require an archaeological study prior to the entitlement. I would like that to be explored, because only you guys can answer that question.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, and I also want to say for the record that I appreciate the representations that were made on behalf of the prospective property purchaser. I take those. I take those words. I take those statements at their word, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that someone was willing to stand at the dais and said, yes, we will represent that we will do this in the right manner. We may or may not get to that point, but I appreciate that and I acknowledge it. I think the parties have some other work to do before this comes back to us. Okay? Anything else? All right. 6A, proposed fiscal year 2027 to 2031 capital improvement program recommendations. And I guess we'll hear a presentation by Robert Wilson, Assistant City Engineer, and then we will be doing action on a recommendation to council for whatever it is that we recommend for KIPS. Mike.
Would you like me to start, or
Go right ahead.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Good evening, commissioners. Today I'm here to talk to you about the fiscal year 27 through 31 capital improvement program and give a brief overview of some draft projects that we have and get your recommendation for this program to be taken to City Council for approval. What we're going to do today, we're going to review a draft list of new projects. This is per the city charter that we receive your input and recommendation to City Council and City Manager for the 5-year CIP. Some notes, this list is a draft list until City Council approves. There's no reference to funding, and the projects are not fiscally constrained. These projects come from City Council, city staff, PER studies, master plans, assessments, development agreements, citizens and civic groups, and regulatory mandates. These projects are in 8 categories, which include airport, drainage, mobility, municipal, parks, surface water, water, and wastewater. Going into those lists, airport has 2 new projects proposed, an administration building and terminal renovation in FY27, and the Southeast Development Feasibility Study and Design in FY29. Those projects are located at the Sugar Land Municipal Airport. Drainage, we have 3 new projects proposed: Austin Parkway drainage modifications, which was part of the 2024 GO bond, the Plantation Bend drainage improvements, both those in FY27, and the citywide drainage studies in FY30 as part of the GO bond. Those projects are located here. Mobility projects, we have quite a few of these. The majority of these were in the 2024 GO bond package, so y'all have likely seen those. The mobility program project implementation, Dulles Avenue sidewalk widening and pedestrian bridges, Sweetwater Boulevard reconstruction phase 1 and phase 2, Lexington Boulevard reconstruction phase 1 and phase 2, and the Settlers Way Boulevard reconstruction all in FY28. Continuing these, the Lake Point to Sugar Land Town Center connection FY30, and the trail system connections, additional routes and sidewalk widening in FY30. Those projects are located here. Going into the municipal new projects, we have a field maintenance facility proposed in FY28. That'll be located off of 90. Parks new projects, we have Parks Rehabilitation Project and the Ganaway Lake Park Phase 1 in FY27. And this is the location of those projects. Surface water new projects, we have a raw water pump station rehab in FY27, a north wastewater treatment plant reuse preliminary engineering report in FY28, reclaimed water south of the Brazos with transmission lines to Greatwood in FY28, reclaimed water plant Phase 2 south of the Brazos in FY30, our surface water treatment plant expansion, transmission lines, and groundwater plant improvements in FY30, and a project contingency for those, and that is the locations for the surface water plant, or surface water projects, sorry. On the wastewater new projects, we have our typical rehabilitation projects, which are collection system rehabilitation, lift station rehabilitation, wastewater treatment plant improvements, and then we have a condition assessment for our south wastewater plant, and the decommissioning of our Greatwood wastewater treatment plant as we're constructing one new one south of the Brazos. We have the north wastewater treatment plant Phase 1B. We have a south of the Brazos wastewater treatment plant Phase 2, north wastewater treatment plant Phase 2A, and project contingency. And this is the location of those projects. For the water projects, we have, again, typical rehabilitation projects, our groundwater plant rehabilitation, SCADA improvements, ground storage tank rehabilitation, well rehabilitation, elevated storage tank rehabilitation, groundwater plant generator and right angle drive replacement, some groundwater building improvements, water distribution system rehabilitation, and then our water south of the Brazos Phase 2 in FY30, the Public Works building in FY31, and project contingency. And this is the location of those projects. And with that, we request the Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend the FY27 through FY31 Capital Improvement Program new project list to the City Manager and City Council. And I'll take any questions you have.
Questions for staff? Yep. Commissioner Tilton.
Yeah, just a couple things. Under wastewater, and I just wanted to make sure that this is correct or if it maybe needs to be modified. Under CWW 2904, North WWT Phase 1B, under the description, you say, under project title, you say Phase 1B, but under the description, it says Phase 1A consists of design. And so I think that
we can make that edit.
Okay. And the same thing with CWW 3104, Phase 2A. When you look at the description, it says Phase 1B consists of the design.
We can make both those edits.
Yes. And then the last one, and I don't know, maybe this is correct or not. CMB 2801, under mobility, it just talks about under the description, it just says due for an update in 2025. So the continued investment in AI connected vehicle programs, infrastructure to support additional data processing needs, update to the ITS master plan implementation current done in 2020, due for an update in 2025. So I don't know whether or not that update was done or not, or if it's supposed to be 2026. So
we can make those edits.
Okay. Then that's all for me.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
From what we saw last year, was there anything major dropped off and what was new that got added?
So most of the projects that are new are looking at the utilities. It's our typical rehabilitation, continued projects, and then the remaining project list is related to the GO bond package. One project that was added from last year is the Plantation Bend drainage improvements. The city's been working to get some federal funding to be able to continue one of the 2019 GO bond packages for drainage.
And this was already all part of the budget already from last year?
So none of this is fiscally constrained. So this is still a draft list until we look at the budget, available budget with City Council.
Other questions for staff? I've got a couple, but anyone else? All right. So first of all, tell me what P&Z is being asked to do. We are being asked to make a recommendation of approval for what?
For this draft list to be taken to City Council.
Okay. And then at least one other question. I never say one more question, but it's bad practice. On mobility, on the Lake Point to Sugarland Town Center connection, I don't understand what is being proposed here as the project. It says the city is currently conducting a livable center study that includes the US 59 State Highway 6 intersection, along with an aerial gondola feasibility study this area. But I don't understand what this proposed project is, since it says those are already underway.
So that project will be looking at the implementation of an additional study for the connection between this location and the Lake Point area.
Okay, and I assume this this particular, well, don't assume, right? I assume there's some connection between this project and the development of Lake Point that's currently underway. Is there some coordination
So most
there?
of this is looking at the 59 connection, so walkability and access across, not by car.
Okay, so not in that direction, but like west and south. Okay, I got it. All right.
So
thank you.
looking across to the other side of 59.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
You mentioned my favorite word, gondolas. So is this area gondola feasibility study, is this the one that already occurred?
So that is one that it has been completed and was working on potential funding, but there's has not started moving or has any movement to it.
So is this CMB 3001 asking for an additional study?
So it's looking at potential ways to get across 59 in any way at the Highway 6 intersection.
Different mobility options for that same
Correct.
intersection,
Correct.
in addition to what's already been looked at and proposed, is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, because, I mean, it's the lawyer in me, the way it reads, it sounds like along with an area gondola feasibility study of the area, which means that y'all will be conducting an additional study and not that you will be incorporating the current study that was done. And so I don't know if
We can revise that wording.
Yeah, revising the language to let the council know that you're not asking for another $800,000 aerial gondola study, but you're just going to be, that study will be utilized in conducting your livable center study, I guess.
We can make that edit.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I will make a motion to recommend approval for the fiscal year 2027-2031 capital improvement program to members of City Council. Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
Can I
got a second,
move?
I think. Was that you? Oh, sorry. Commissioner Patel?
Can I make a motion to modify to include the changes that I requested?
Sure. How about this? Let me amend my motion to
Okay.
include a motion of recommendation approval subject to the changes that were recommended to staff during our Q&A. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds
All right.
good.
And now, would you care to second that? I've got a second of that. Better motion by Commissioner Patel. Any further discussion? All right, please vote. All right, that passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Item 7A, Planning Zoning Commission Liaison Report from the June 2nd City Council meeting. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, there was actually two items that I thought might be of interest. There was there's been some discussion in a workshop around the ordinance 2403 around vegetation and landscape maintenance. And I know we had talked about that as a part of our zone, not the maintenance, but actually the landscaping as a part of our zoning. And I thought that this would be useful to have as information when that comes up for discussion around how we may change that in the part of the zoning or the changes that have been brought forward by staff. Given that they're going to now start asking people to do their own maintenance around like lights and things like that, it may, you may need to think about how far you move the tree, right, and plant it. The other one is and this has sort of been an ongoing discussion too with council, was around the process for boards and commissions, for putting people on boards and commissions. And so there will be another round with council with around some of the wordings and lengths of time, which would eventually impact us.
Great.
That's
Thank
it.
you very much for your report. Much appreciated. 7B, City Staff Report.
Good evening again. So your next meeting is June 25th. What we have kind of on the docket for that agenda is a plat extension for preliminary plat in the Rye Hill development. And we are also anticipating bringing a workshop forward to you for a proposed amendment to the Lake Point redevelopment district. Workshop only.
Another change?
Noted. Any other business? I'll move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a second from Commissioner Smith. Everyone vote. Aye. That motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Good night. Thank you.
Wow.